President Trump recently said that he, quote, doesn't know if he's required to uphold the Constitution. Is the president's choice, is it a choice to obey the Constitution? We asked Stephen Montoya, a partner at Montoya, Lucero, and Pastor, one of our go-to guys when it comes to the Constitution. Stephen, good to have you here. Does he have a choice to obey the Constitution?
I'd like to say no, but I have to say yes and no. He does have a choice because, as you understand, last Supreme Court term, the court granted him immunity from any type of criminal prosecution for disobeying the law in the course of his office. So he's immune, and that does give him more of a choice than others have. So that's the yes part. The no part is that he's still morally and legally required to obey the law like anyone else and is not above the law. But of course, because he has immunity, at least according to this Supreme Court, he has more latitude than anyone else in the United States.
If the president, though, tells Stephen Montoya to do something that is unconstitutional, that breaks the law, what happens to Stephen Montoya?
Stephen Montoya, if he obeys, could be prosecuted. However, if Trump wants to create a pattern of ordering illegal behavior, he could pardon me. Really, the Supreme Court last term created an engine that is ripe for illegal use by making the president absolutely immune from criminal prosecution for anything done in the course and scope of his office. And the Constitution already gave him the power, the unqualified power, to pardon.
He swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. Okay, he swore. Does that make any difference at all here?
Yeah, it does make a difference, and it could be a big difference. He's already been impeached twice, but he was not convicted. The difference that it makes is he could be conceivably impeached a third time and actually convicted. That's the difference that violation of his oath makes. But violating it absent impeachment is just really something that's wrong and certainly not good, but doesn't have any consequence.
And if impeached and convicted, then that Supreme Court ruling says that's the bridge too far. You get that impeachment, that's the only way to stop him.
Yes, but the Supreme Court said that he would be criminally immune even if he were impeached. See, the current Solicitor General, Mr. Sauer, argued that he could only be prosecuted if he was first impeached and convicted, but the court actually said that he would be immune for anything that he did while in office, as long as it was within the course and scope. If he runs, his bar buddy down in the street because they get into a fight about a football game, that's not in the course and scope, so he wouldn't be immune for that.
Right.
But the types of things that he's doing now are within the course and scope.
And everything, I think his supporters will say, and the administration will say, and he will say, as long as it's necessary for national security. I mean, due process. As long as it's necessary for national security, due process goes out the window. The courts are obviously fighting back on that, but that's the position that he holds.
That is the position that he holds, and that is a false position. Remember the Steele seizure case. President Truman tried to order the seizure of the steel mills in order to produce weapons during towards the end of the Second World War, and the court said, no, you're going too far, you cannot do that.
Defying the federal courts as the administration has, as he has, what is the impact as far as justice in America, the concept of a veering toward authoritarianism in America when he says on national TV, as he did, I really don't know if I need to uphold the... What does that do?
It's really bad because he's attacking something that is really the foundation of American law and really the foundation of Western civilization that goes all the way back to the Middle Ages, literally, and that is due process. That the executive, whether the executive is a king or an elected president, cannot seize people and imprison people or deport people without some type of hearing where they have the right to present evidence and be heard. It's not necessarily a jury trial. However, it is a hearing before a neutral tribunal that will allow you to present your case.
Yes. Critics, on the other hand, will say that what's happening now, what we're seeing him say and what we're seeing the administration do, is proof that he sees no constraints on him. He sees nothing to constrain him. Do they have a point?
They do have a point because he keeps on saying that that people are not entitled to trials and that he can deport people unilaterally. So they do have a point. I just hope they're wrong. It remains to be seen whether he'll actually defy the court. Some people think that he already has, and I'm kind of in the middle on that, veering towards that he has.
With the facilitate,
Yeah,
the word facilitate.
He was supposed to facilitate the return of Mr. Albrego Garcia, who was unlawfully, by mistake, deported to El Salvador, and he hasn't done it, and he hasn't tried to do it, and in fact, he's mocked his obligation to try to do it, which is really defying the court. And then subsequent to defying the court, he's also said, I don't know if everyone is entitled to a trial. Do I have to obey the Supreme Court? I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. My lawyers, tell me something different, and I obey my lawyers. I don't understand how a lawyer could tell him that, which is an interesting point. See, lawyers, I'm a lawyer, and I'm afraid to defy the court, because I swore to obey the court, and I feel I have an obligation to obey to be consistent with my oath. Plus, I don't want to be disbarred. And see, that's something the courts can use against him. These lawyers who get up before the federal courts and make these wild claims can be punished by the judiciary.
Yeah, and the judiciary, there are no pardons as far as a presidential pardon for that.
Very good point.
All right,
Correct.
Stephen Montoya, great stuff. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, sir.